At one point, I have to share a story because I think this is so powerful. So, two things. I listened to a TED Talk by referral from a friend, Chris, who said that I need to go listen to this Lollipop Leadership TED Talk. You should go find it. It's like 6 minutes long. It's brilliant. And it's this gentleman sharing a story about how he was on campus and he hands out lollipops to sort of like market to people on campus. And he, unbeknownst to him, there's a young woman who's coming to school. She is terrified. She didn't want to be there. She's telling her parents, this isn't the right thing. I can't be here. I want to go home. And they're like, okay, well, just hang with us. Let's just be in this line. Let's get wherever they were going, right? It doesn't matter. And so she's standing in line with her parents, and this random guy walks up to her with a lollipop. And he's cracking jokes and he gives her a lollipop and he's like, look here, look at how brave she is, everybody. Having no idea. Look at how brave she is. She's already here and look at how great she's doing. She's standing next to this guy who like needs to give her a compliment about what a beautiful woman she is or something. He was just cracking a joke, right? And this guy uncomfortably shifts and looks at her and says something nice or whatever, and they go back to their jam. And at the end of graduation, she found him and walked up to him and said, I just want you to know that what you did made a huge difference in my life. And she actually was engaged and got married to that guy that was in line next to her in college. She was one click away from going home. One click. That's the magic. That's the thing that I would tell you, that I love this idea that in one small moment, we can have a really profound impact for one another. And this guy, this gentleman, and I'm so sorry, I don't have his name in front of me, but it's so good. I want to say Dustin, I don't know, something. Anyway, beautiful story. Go look it up on TED Talk. Trust me, Lollipop Leadership. You'll find it somewhere in there. The lollipop moments, and one of the things I love that he says is that when we have a moment, so when he does the TED Talk, he asks, has anybody had this moment where somebody profoundly changed your life, right? All the hands go up. And then how many of you told the person? And the hands don't go up. Only a few. And he conveys this story of this beautiful moment with this woman, right? He reconveys this story where someone comes up to him and says, like, you literally changed the trajectory of my entire life in this one moment. He had no idea what she was going through. He was like a an angel extra on a scene in a show, right? Like he walks in, changes her life, walks out, has no idea. And so for her to come up to him later and say to him, you really changed my life. You really changed my world. He was like, I never forgot it. And that's what he's really embracing and telling us, is like these leadership moments, these moments where we can be with one another in life. And I think that's so profound. And so I think this is a cool lens idea, right? Like, could I use an agreement for myself to make sure that when I have these lollipop moments, when someone is changing the trajectory of my life for me, that I will pause and reach out and say to them, thank you so much for what you did for me. You changed my life. So I have a couple stories. One is one from high school where I ended up in really serious financial debt with my family was really struggling financially. I shouldn't say I did, my family was. And I was not going to be able to afford to go to my high school anymore. And it was there was a lot of traumatic stuff going on. I was like 17. There was a lot of family things going on. It was really, really hard and it was really traumatic. And so at that point, leaving my school would have been a really big deal for me. I was already going through so much. And so someone anonymously donated the money, a scholarship, so to speak, to allow me to stay at school. And so I sort of just like made this agreement with myself, right? This was one of mine. So this is stepping into one of mine here, that I was like, I am going to make sure that I pay this forward. This generosity that I'm experiencing, I was like 17 and I knew to be grateful. I was like, I'm going to pay this forward in my lifetime because that's my job. And I, by the way, do know who did it. And so I did send some things quite some time ago to say thank you and hopefully to let them know that my job, what I'm doing in the world, is hopefully paying that forward. And they were very humble. They did not want me to know. So we never had a conversation, but I did say, thank you for your lollipop moment, because what might have been small beans to them was a very generous abundance for me in my life. And it changed my life. It changed the trajectory. And so that's what we're getting at, is that, right, that can be an agreement. That's one of mine. And I think it's beautiful. Like, I want to make sure I pay the generosity I've ever received forward. That is one of my jobs in this lifetime. And so that's an agreement that I have for myself, right? And that's when I wouldn't ditch or kick to the curb for the life of me. Like, that's one of my very favorites. So you'll never see me skipping that one out, because that's one of my faves, and that's just like hardwired into my soul. But I want to talk about one that wasn't so successful, right? So that was one story, but there's another story where it's not quite so successful, and it's one that I might want to consider renewal. So my second story that's not so great about renewal, and one of my agreements that I had with myself, was a little bit related to friendship. Well, it was wholly related to friendship, let's be honest. Wholly related to relationships. And I had a really tough friendship story. I had some really tough run-ins with women, and I had a falling out with a friend for like a year, and it was really hard for me. It was really emotional. This was someone who I really cared about. If somebody doesn't like me and I don't really know them, I have a really easy time, for the most part, being like, well, you know what I mean? I'm just not your cup of tea, or I don't mind your crank, or whatever you want to say, right? Like, I am pretty fluid about that. But when it comes to somebody that I really care about, it's so much harder to be like, well, no, it hurts me like really deeply. And so I had this falling out with a friend. We hadn't been talking for a year. I'm driving to work, and I was listening to Gabrielle Bernstein on my audiobooks. You guys will always hear me tout about personal growth and personal development. And this was a game changer day on so many layers. And I'm just going to get to that for you in a minute. So I'm driving to work, and I'm just sad about this whole story, and I'm playing out these situations. So I wanted to give you the backstory about the friend that I hadn't been speaking to. We were estranged, because it's gonna play out in a minute. And I'm driving on the road, and I'm thinking of a time in college where I was walking down the hall. I was getting ready to go to class, and my roommate pulls me aside, and she's like, "Hey Jen, I just want to tell you that I'm really sorry." And I was like, "Okay, for what?" I had no idea this was coming. And she's like, "Well, I just wanted to tell you that I overheard what you were saying last night on your call with your friend, and I had thought you were like really fake. And I was listening to you talk to your friend last night, and I realized that you were really like authentic, that you were really, really were that kind." And I was like, "Thanks." You just sort of insulted me and then said something nice all in the same fell swoop. Okay, don't have a box for this, right? And I was like, okay, well, thanks for noticing. I don't know. So it was really uncomfortable, but I got this message that people and women read me as fake, right? So I have carried this insecurity for years that women couldn't see me as what I was, right? And I had already kind of been like more comfortable with guys. Like, I just tend to like say it like it is and just move on. And like, that's kind of more my shtick. And so I naturally resonated with men more easily. And so this was like just confirming, right, my worst fear, that women couldn't possibly show up and see me for who I am. And so I was really upset about it. And it stayed there. It just went in this little, Don Miguel would call it like a little bit of black magic. And she didn't mean anything malicious, right? We're not talking about the intention. This person thought they were saying something really nice to me. And the intention was nice. But I took this little piece of black magic and I tucked it in my soul. And I was like, oh, so people can't really see me for who I am. And I had all of these stories that backed that up, unfortunately. So this story with my estranged friend really hits hard for me, right? Because it was like somebody that I just would have never seen having an estranged moment with. So I'm driving down the road, and Gabrielle Bernstein starts talking about how very often in our interactions, when people are coming at us, they're coming at us with their own stuff. And I mean, and I don't know what it is, the moment, the moons, I don't even know, right? Everything aligns, right? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, and the tears are running down my face. And I'm thinking of this story and this person who approached me and was like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't understand you and I didn't see you." And I'm like, oh my God, she was talking about herself. She wasn't talking about me. She was talking about her experience of herself. And it was like this big aha moment. I said, tears running down my face. I'm driving to work and I'm trying to pull myself back together because I've got to get in the office and get going for my therapy day. And I'll just never forget that sensation of having something click like that, right? This beautiful contradiction to an agreement. I didn't even realize I'd been carrying around for so long. Like, I just can't really connect with women because they really don't get me. People see one layer of me and that's all they see. And that was kind of this experience I had. So I'm driving into work, Okay, here's the miracles as they start to stack up because it's such a beautiful story. So I get to work, do my day. My 11 o'clock, I want to say, client came in and just randomly brings me a Hershey almond bar. Sounds totally random. It's like, I don't know, I was just thinking about you and I wanted to bring this for you. Literally, I go, that is the craziest thing. That is my mom's favorite kind of candy bar. When she was alive, this was her favorite. So it was a little bit like, I just knew in this moment, my mom is like talking to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? She'd be talking to me. And I was like, no way, this is the craziest. And so now I have this beautiful chocolate bar, this beautiful gesture, and I'm feeling wholly held by my mother. Like, my mother's looking out for me. It's for some reason. I don't know why my mom's looking out for me. She's looking out for me, right? And so I'm like feeling really just a sweet gesture, so grateful, do my day, go into my appointment in the afternoon, mid-afternoon. And I can hear my phone in my drawer, and it just buzzes because it's not on ring, but I can hear it. So I'm getting texts, right? I have no idea what this is. Thinking maybe it's my sisters, you know, the three of us can carry on, just saying. And so I'm wondering if it's my sisters. So I get out of session, go to my desk. I've got a kid, so I'm always checking, right, to make sure there's no one's sick, no one needs me, there's no fire, whatever. And so I pick it up, and it's this friend I had been estranged from for a year. This incredible long series of texts apologizing to me, saying that she was sorry, saying that she understood that she was in the wrong, telling me most of the story in totality, kind of in summary. And I'm at work. I'm sobbing at my desk. And I, in this moment, had this most strong visceral response that, like, our parents, her dad had passed away as well, are like legitimately up in heaven, like working their magic. Like, they're co-conspiring to make sure that something is going to happen with this and something is going to be resolved. And it took me a couple of hours. One, I had more clients to see, which was horrible because I like pull myself together because I was so emotional about it. And I'd had this like miracle happen. And so I was like in this like just absolute like state of like beauty and flow, but also completely distracted. I'm sure you feel me. So go back to my day and I end up texting her. We end up getting together. We end up having a whole big conversation. We're good. It heals. Okay. So that's the beauty of this story, right? But what I want to say is that I had an agreement in my heart about friendship that I had been carrying around for years. And so when something happens, our journey tends to take us back to these stories where something really painful happened to us. And it was this pivotal, achy hurt and moment that we've carried with us. And so for me, I had this just really epic healing. That whole day was like just epic healing. I was being given these gifts one after the other. My drive in, who I'm listening to, how I have this insight, right? I have this beautiful moment. Then I get to work. Then I get a gift, right? By a client, like just one thing after another, and this beautiful day lined up to allow me to heal. And so we are carrying this stuff around, friends. I wanted to be able to share it with you because I feel like sharing that vulnerability allows you insight. Like, this is my journey too. I don't ask you to step into something and do some work that I'm unwilling to do. But I just wanted to throw that out there for you to kind of sit with and like let it percolate, if you will, because I think it's so important. And so anyway, that is the story. So there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? As we like to say. But that was my toughie.